Most of us play video games because they're fun. We enjoy the mechanics, the visuals, and a lot of the time the challenge of video games. But not every single thing in a video game is like that. There are certain missions in, well, both good games and bad games, that just hurt. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on Gameranx, 10 video game missions that are 100% pure torture. Starting with number 10, Doom Eternal's Terrasnabad Master Level. There's hard, and then there is Master Level hard. Doom Eternal is already an unforgiving and brutal game, but if you really want to experience suffering, try out the Master Levels. 3 mixed versions of standard levels with this sadistic enemy placement designed by and for masochists. If you're the type of person that plays Doom on Hurt Me Plenty, you're not going to get a lot of satisfaction out of these things. Worst of them all, at least in my opinion, is Terrasnabad. This is the level that introduces the Archvile in the regular game, so the standard version's pretty brutal by itself. But the Master Level version is cruel and unusual, to the point where it seems like it would be banned by the Geneva Convention. Archviles are bad enough, obviously, but how about one that spawns directly in front of you at the same time as a marauder spawning behind you? Or not just one, but 2 separate arenas where you have to deal with 2 Archviles at once. I hope you like tight corridors where they trap you with highly dangerous enemies, because that happens a lot. On the hardest difficulty, the only way to get through this level is to just be a god. It's basically a different level at this point. Oh yeah, one more thing. You gotta do it in a perfect run because there's no saving in Master Levels. Good luck! At number 9 is Halo 2's Gravemind, a relatively short mission from Halo 2, widely considered to be the toughest in the entire series, at least on Legendary, aka the only difficulty that matters? I kid, I don't play on Legendary when I go back to it. This mission bombards you with cruelty right from the start. You start in this large area filled with enemies, you're stuck with a crappy needler, and if you're playing on Legendary, a stiff breeze can kill you, so that usually happens. People start this mission and then die, and then die, and then die. It happens a bunch of times before you get past this room. Sometimes you even die before the title screen fades. That's how relentless this is. They throw pretty much everything at you in this one. Annoying brutes, multiple hunters, jackal snipers, which are almost always a one-hit kill. It's just a pain all the way down. The only way to get through it is with skills and some serious patience, because you have to be extremely careful about everything you do here. At least there is a checkpoint every once in a while, but it's too infrequent considering how painful the entire experience can be. This is one of those levels that's so tough that a lot of players just give up and use glitches and tricks to cause enemies to despawn and skip entire sections. Like, it's easier to speedrun it than it is to play it normally, which really says it all. At number 8 is GTA San Andreas Supply Lines. A lot of annoying missions in San Andreas, and the lack of checkpoints can turn any mission that would normally be kind of annoying into a controller-smashing nightmare when you factor in having to drive back to the starting point after you die. At least you can't die in this mission, but that doesn't actually make it any easier. Supply Lines is a second mission you take on for Zero in San Fierro. It's one of those dumb gimmick missions that would be incredibly easy in a modern game, but in San Andreas, for some reason, the timing is incredibly strict. So what you have to do is fly this little RC plane around and destroy a bunch of couriers and then fly back to Zero's roof. Sounds simple, and it should have been simple, but it isn't. For some unknown reason, Rockstar decided to make it so the plane has barely enough fuel to finish the job, which is kind of a problem when the targets you're tracking are driving all over the city in a semi-random pattern. It just made this one so frustrating. All you could really do was try to memorize the order you should take out the couriers. Like, you couldn't memorize their exact locations, but you could kind of pinpoint general locations. But even that isn't really enough, because the awkward flying controls, oh, they got in the way. And when they got in the way, you took too long taking out a truck, and oh, there's that fuel problem again. Of course, just taking everything out isn't good enough either. Zero's got to get his precious plane back. So if you run out of fuel and then trip back, sorry, that's game over. And seriously, I blew up the cars. The mission's done. Why do you need the plane back in perfect condition? And then there's the fact that although David Cross is a great actor and I don't actually hate his voice, during these missions I do hate his voice. You hear from him constantly during these missions, and not one of the lines is anything short of annoying.
Watch your fuel, Carl. Only half a tank left.
They did make this a lot easier in most San Andreas re-releases, so if you're wondering what the fuss is about, play it on PlayStation 2 and you'll know. At number 7 is Nier: Life in the Sands. Cavia, the developers behind games like Drakengard and Nier, had a sort of reputation in the games industry. Back before pulling tricks and antagonizing the player base became cool with From Software and the Souls games, Cavia were kind of the masters of alienating the people who play their games. Take basically everything about Drakengard, for example. Nothing specific, just the game in total. The original Nier was them trying to make something more mainstream than Drakengard. Like, let that sink in. Just because the game is more technically playable than their previous games doesn't mean it doesn't have trolled by Cavia moments in it. One of the biggest trolls in the game is this stupid side quest called Life in the Sands. Objective, deceptively simple. Some guy wants 10 pink moonflower seeds. Sounds easy enough. Sounds like a normal open world side quest, even. Thing is, there is no such thing as pink moonflower seeds. There's red and blue ones, but there's no pink ones. The only way to get them is to crossbreed flowers in your garden, which is a thing that most players probably didn't think was possible. I mean, when I originally played that game, I sure didn't. That alone wouldn't make this such a troll necessarily, but it takes forever to actually grow anything in this game. Plants grow based on the console's internal clock, so it literally takes days. And even if you know what to do, your chances of getting a pink moonflower seed is actually incredibly low. It's a little easier on the Xbox 360 where you could change the internal clock, but if you've got the new version of the game, that's no longer possible, at least on PlayStation 4. So your reward for going through all this tedious crap is worth it, right? No. All you get is 10,000 gold, which at this point in the game is, it might as well be like 5 cents. It's the kind of money you wouldn't even bother bending down to pick up if you saw it on the street. It's a completely pointless, frustrating, and ultimately disappointing mission that is just there to waste your time. Like, that's Nier side quest in a nutshell, folks. At number 6 is Far Cry's Volcano mission. Compared to what most people know the series as today, Far Cry 1 is very different. Instead of fighting pirates and repressive governments, you're battling mercenaries and mutants, and it can be really tough. Doesn't take a lot to die, there's no quick saves. Certain missions can be brutal. By far the worst, though, is the final level. It's so bad, players just give up or find ways to cheese it, because trying to complete it as intended is basically a death sentence. It's one case where it's hard to even imagine what the developers were thinking. It is so unfair. It's essentially just a door into an active volcano, a place filled with enemies that are instantly aggro on the second you open that door, and if you try to fight them on the way out, you're just gonna die. Also, the door locks behind you, so once you go out, you're stuck. It's so stupid, but the only real way to get through this one, outside of pure dumb luck, is to block the door so it doesn't lock, then go back inside after triggering the enemies. Every enemy's a bullet sponge, and it only takes one rocket to kill you, so even if you're using the door as cover, it's still likely you'll get a stray rocket in the face and die. It's a miserable level. The rest of the game is at least fair, but this challenge straight up sucks. At number 5 is Grand Theft Auto 5's Epsilon missions. Not every mission on this list has to be incredibly difficult to be torture. Sometimes they just have to be tedious. The Epsilon missions in Grand Theft Auto 5 are specifically designed to test players' patience in as many ways possible. It's an intentional joke by the developers just to see what lengths players will go to if a game tells them to do something, no matter how stupid it is. Mostly what these missions are about is collecting some money and then a few cars. Basic stuff. But when they ask you to do something really stupid like wear an Epsilon robe for 10 days or run through the desert on foot for 5 miles non-stop, that's when the developers are really trying to strain your patience. Especially because if you actually want to complete the Epsilon robes challenge, you basically have to get Michael to sleep 40 times in a row, because if you ever switch characters, he'll just change clothes and force you to do the whole thing over. Same for the Senor Desert run, and I'm using the word run loosely. If you leave the boundary or the area, you have to start the whole thing all over. It's all intentionally designed to make you want to kill these dopes, and thankfully it does give you the opportunity to do that, but it's a whole lot of tedious nonsense to get through first. At number 4 is Call of Duty World at War's Heart of the Reich. A long-running series at this point with tons of missions, and of course there's hard ones. But for people crazy enough to play through all these games on veteran difficulty, the mission they consider to be the hardest has remained pretty consistent through the years. World of War is often called the toughest game to play through on veteran, and the toughest mission is usually considered to be the Heart of the Reich. It's the final mission in the game where you play as the Red Army, storming the Reichstag. On normal, this can be completed in just a few minutes, like seriously, it's one of the shortest in the series, but on Veteran, it's a brutal battle for every single step. Seriously, we're talking dozens of hours in some cases for people to finally crack this nut. Basically, every possible annoying thing about Call of Duty is in this mission. There's constantly respawning enemies with perfect accuracy who have the amazing ability to make grenades appear on top of you whenever they want. Nobody's throwing these grenades, not really. The game's just spawning them on top of you the second you dare to think about standing in one spot for more than a second. Half the time, there will be more than one grenade, so you can't even throw them back, and that's all while dealing with enemies that make aimbots look balanced in comparison. It's literally just the main room and a few hallways to the rooftop, but it's so incredibly brutal that moving forward a few steps feels like amazing accomplishment level stuff. The level's extremely, absurdly difficult. Like, they make it seem like the actual storming of the Reichstag was easier. I can't vouch for that, I wasn't there, but this is a tough level. At number 3 is Spider-Man Race Against Time. The Spider-Man game based on the 2002 Spider-Man film isn't too hard, up until you get to this mission, which is like hitting a brick wall. On normal, it's simply nearly impossible, while on harder difficulties, it is impossible. Seriously, if you look this one up on game FAQs for strategies, they'll tell you to just use the skipped level code. Like, yeah, it's probably not completely impossible. There's somebody out there that can probably do it, but it's absolutely ridiculous. In this mission, the Green Goblin placed a bunch of bombs all over the city, so your goal is to reach each bomb and disarm them before time runs out. The problem is twofold. For one thing, the time limit is stupidly strict, and for another, you gotta deal with these annoying robots that are built to drain your health at long range. If you ignore them, they'll certainly kill you, but if you take them out, you'll run out of time and the mission will fail, and that's that. And there's really just no winning here. On higher difficulties, suggestions for this game range from, like I said, telling you to skip it entirely to telling you to cheat, just to deal with the robots and the time limit. Funny enough, it's the second Treyarch game on this list. They're the ones that made World at War, so I don't know what it is about these guys and ridiculous missions. It seems like they can't help themselves. At number 2 is the Simpsons Hit and Run final mission. You'd think a game based on The Simpsons would be generally pretty easy and aimed towards a casual audience. But if you did think that, you'd be wrong. The Simpsons Hit and Run was shockingly hard. Once you got through the deceptively simple first level and the mask comes off, the game stops playing around. None of it's easy, actually. But if you want real pain, look no further than the 3-part final mission of the game. Everything about it is just absurd. Everyone's trying to kill you. You're driving a crappy car that handles like crap, and you've got toxic waste strapped to your car that can't take any damage, or you have to go back and start all over again.
Mistakes were made. I'm a lean speed thingy.
Of course, you're also on a time limit, just to make things more miserable. It's also random. It feels like there's barely anything you can do. Sometimes you just lose and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just a painfully stupid and frustrating set of missions. If you want to be miserable, then try to beat Simpsons Hit and Run. It's guaranteed to make you very angry. Very angry.
Chicks love it when I do this. Oh, like no. I so want to cry right now.
Why me? Oh.
And finally, at number 1, Breakdown, Site Zero Redux. So far, we've talked about a lot of hard missions, right? This one, I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say it's actually impossible, at least on Series X. If you don't know, Breakdown was a pretty obscure first-person action game that came out exclusively for the Xbox. One of the first games to attempt to have an immersive first-person camera where you actually could pick things up, you could get knocked down. It was actually pretty impressive at the time. Not the best game, though. It's a curiosity, to be sure, and a positive that it's actually playable on the Xbox Series X, and even has enhanced features. The level I'm talking about here is the final one. Specifically, though, after the final boss. There's a part where you get to this big room with pillars. It's commonly cited as the toughest room in the game. You fight multiple tough enemies at once. Again, right after the final boss. On Xbox Original, it's tough but possible. On Series X, with the improved frame rate, though, you're screwed. The game was originally designed to accommodate the slowdown, which made the enemies a little more manageable. But on the Series X, they just overwhelm you and stun lock you to death no matter what you do. Maybe there's somebody out there that's actually managed to finish this game on normal playing on a Series X, but I can't find anyone online that has. So yeah, I'm betting there's like one breakdown king who might be able to pull this off, but 99.999% of people, it's probably not possible.
And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter @FalconTheHero. We'll see you next time right here on Gameranx.